today we're going to do section 9.1, day 1, naming polynomials. You'll notice this next chapter has 5 sections. The first standard is naming polynomials. Now, polynomials have a first name and a last name. On the first name, we look at the exponents when we decide on the first name. So the first name would be like Barack, okay, or George, right? That's going to be the first name. When we do it, we look at the exponents. So for example, if the highest exponent in the polynomial is a 1, we'll call him linear. Like a line. You remember y equals mx plus b? It's linear, it was a line, okay? If the highest exponent is a 2, the first name will be quadratic, okay? If the highest exponent is a 3, we call it cubic, right? And then after your 4th child, it's like I give up with the special names. I'm just going to go 4th degree. I don't care anymore. You're just another person in the family, right? If you have the 5th child, you're just going to be 5th degree or 6th degree or 7th degree or 8th degree. There's no la-di-da name, okay? Right, so that's the first name. The last name, we look at number of terms, right? So like Obama or Washington, it's their last name, right? If I have one term, I call it a monomial. Mono meaning one, right? If there are 2 terms, I call it a binomial, like a biplane and a bicycle, 2. Right? If I have 3 terms, I call it a trinomial, like a tricycle has 3 wheels or a triangle has 3 sides, right? And then after 4, they don't care. So it's polynomial with 4 terms. You do have to put polynomial in there, right? So don't just say 4 terms. It's a polynomial with 4 terms. And the last one is a polynomial with 5 terms, or a polynomial with 6 terms, or a polynomial with 7 terms. And you're going to see a different combination with the different terms. Okay, so I want you to keep this slide up on your iPads as I go to the next slide. Okay, and you're going to kind of see how they're related. Yeah?
Are we going to have to memorize these?
You're going to memorize them, but they're not hard. Because the first name, there's actually 4 of them. And in the last name, there's like 3 of them. So they're not bad, and once you get going, you'll be like, oh, yeah, right? All right, so keep this screen up as we look at this one on the smartboard, all right? So we're going to look at each polynomial. These are all polynomials. All a polynomial is a special type of expression, right? Kind of like the president is someone special. They got to be over 35 years of age, have to be born in the United States, okay? Just a special type of expression. Right. So I'm going to look at this first one. Now, all the time, when you look at polynomials, you should have them in standard form. All that means is the variable with the highest exponent goes first, and then it goes in descending order. So you'll notice that I have a variable right here, and there is no exponent, but technically there is one. There's technically a 1 there. Oops, it comes after the variable. It's right there. Okay, and remember when we graphed this, we graphed a line, okay? So if I'm taking a look at the degree, it would be a 1. This is a 1, and if you look on your sheet, if the exponent is a 1, we call it linear, right? I'm not going to look at number of terms right now. I'm just going to take a look at the degree, right? Now let's take a look at this next one, okay? 3x squared. See, that's the highest exponent. And then I've got a 2x. I got the x, and then I got the number here. The highest exponent here is a 2. Okay, so 2, and look on your iPads. Notice that it's a quadratic. Okay, now take a look at 4x cubed. Highest exponent is a 3. Look on your iPads. It's cubic. Okay, and this last one, do you see how there is no exponent? This is one we did not put on the list, and you might want to include on your list. Whenever I don't have a variable, okay, the degree is 0 because there isn't a variable there. We call that a constant. Okay, so that's something you're going to need to add on that list. So the first name deals with just the degree or the exponent. It's the first name. The second name deals with number of terms. So let's take a look at the number of terms for just a minute. The number of terms are cut by addition and subtraction symbols. So if you take a look at the first polynomial, right, do you notice how there's one plus sign there? So you cut it. It's like you got your karate hands out and you're like, fruit ninja, right? You're going to cut it. Okay, the first term is 7x. The second term is 4. Do you see that? So the number of terms then is 2. And if you look on your list, that's called a binomial. So this polynomial would be called a linear binomial. Okay, linear binomial. Let's look at this one. I'm going to cut it now with addition symbols. So again, fruit ninja, right? Okay. How many terms do I have there? I have 3. One of them is 3x squared. One of them is 2x, and one is a 1. Right? So I have 3 terms. And if you look on that sheet on your iPad, that's called a trinomial. So this is called a quadratic trinomial. Right, let's take a look at this next one, 4x cubed. Is there addition or subtraction symbol? There is not. So how many terms is there? There's 1, and I call it a monomial. Okay, and finally, the 5, there's no addition or subtraction symbol. I also call it a monomial. But rather than a cubic monomial, I call it a constant monomial. Okay, so you'll notice that the last 2 have the same last name, don't they? But the first 2, or the first names, they're different. Okay, so in the same family of monomials. And that's how you name it, right? Yes, you need to memorize this, but it isn't so bad once you get started on it. Okay, all right, let's move on to the next one. So you can all go on your iPads and go to this next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about this. And you can flip-flop between the 2 slides for right now. We're going to name each polynomial in standard form. What that means is I got to make sure I line up all my exponents. Essentially was what I got to do. Then it asks me to name it by the degree and the number of terms. In other words, first name, last name. Okay? So let's take a look at this first one. Okay, notice that I really don't have any exponents that I can see, but I want to get my variable first. So I'm going to rewrite this as negative 2x plus 5. You'll notice that minus or negative in front of the 2, it goes with the number, all right? And since 5 doesn't have anything, it's a positive number. Right now, what's the highest exponent? It is a 1, right? So I'm going to call it what? I'm going to call it linear. And how many terms do I have? I have 2 because I cut it right at that addition symbol. Negative 2x is the first one, and 5 is the second one. Okay, so if it's 2 terms, I call it a binomial. Now, some students, they actually like to cut them. So they're like, wah! And they'll cut them like that on their test. I'm fine with that if that's what you need to do to understand it. Some kids will also put in a 1 above this just to help them so they know that it's linear. Right? You do what you need to do. All right, let's go to the next one. Is this in standard form? It is not. What would be the first term? 3x to the 4th, and then? Good, plus 2x squared minus 4. So notice that I put my variables first, and I put the exponents in descending order. What's the highest exponent? 4. So what would I call it? 4th degree. How many terms? There are 3, so I call it a trinomial. Yep, and if you want to, you can cut it. There you go. So the first term is 3x to the 4th, second term is 2x squared, and the third term is -4. All right, number 3. Is that in standard form? It is not. What's the first term? X cubed. Yep, x cubed. Then minus 4x squared, and then minus 2x, and then plus 5. Very good. What's the highest exponent? 3, so I call it a cubic. How many terms? There are 4. That's right. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So I call it a, polynomial with 4 terms. And you got to put polynomial in there because it's a special type of expression. Not every expression is a polynomial. And then the last one, is that in standard form? Yes, it is. What is the first name? It is a constant. Why is it a constant? Yeah, it's just a number, isn't it? It doesn't have a variable with it, so I call it a constant. How many terms? 1, so it's a monomial. Now, some students will do flashcards to get to know these better. Tomorrow, we're going to play Kahoot. So if you practice it tonight, you could be the winner of Kahoot tomorrow. Yeah.
So not every expression is a polynomial.
It is not, and we're going to see that on the next slide. Yeah, not every polynomial, or I should say not every expression is a polynomial, and we'll see it. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at this. It's going to say, tell me whether the expression is a polynomial, and if it is a polynomial, find its degree and classify it by the number of terms. Otherwise, tell why it's not a polynomial. So let's take a look at this first one. I'm going to tell you right now it is, and you're going to go, oh, but how do I know? You're going to find out in a minute. So we're going to say yes, this is a polynomial. Okay, what's the first name? It's going to be a constant because it's a number. How many terms? So we call it a monomial. Bless you. Okay, constant monomial. If it's a number, it's always a constant monomial. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at this next one. This next one, I'm going to tell you right now, it is not a polynomial. Why do you think that could be? Yeah. That's correct. You can't have a negative exponent. So can't have a negative exponent. Exactly. Now, sometimes you're going to see this like this. Remember when we did that? It's got a negative exponent, so it goes downstairs. If I write it like that, is it a polynomial? Still is not. Still isn't. Okay, so don't let them trick you on that. Now, that's the difference on an NWEA between, you know, like the 230s and the 240s. It's being able to see exponents, and they can change them a little bit, but they don't trick you. Okay? These polynomials make a difference with their scores when you get into when you take that test. All right, let's keep going. What about this one? Do you think this is a polynomial? Does it have a negative exponent? It does not have a negative exponent. It just happens to have a negative h. So yes, it is a polynomial. What's its first name? It is going to be cubic. How many terms? 2. So I call it a binomial. Yep. Again, terms are separated by addition and subtraction symbols. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Is it a polynomial? Yes. Is it in standard form? No. So we need to put it in standard form. What would be the first term? Yep. Negative 5x to the 4th, and then plus 3x, and then plus 9. Yeah, there is a 9 out front. So yes, it is a polynomial. What's its first name? 4th degree. What's its last name? Trinomial. Why trinomial? That's correct. There's 3 terms. Do you notice how quickly you learn it? Once you kind of have the idea of it, it's not that hard. Mono is 1, bi is 2, tri is 3, and then nomial at the end. Okay. All right, the last one. Do you think this is a polynomial, yes or no, and why? It is not. Why not? That's correct. The exponent is a variable, isn't it? So this is no, and you can't have an exponent as a variable. Okay. So it's pretty much a polynomial for, as far as we're concerned, but it can't do what? The exponents can't be a negative, and they can't be a variable. They cannot. All right. Otherwise, it's naming it. All right. Tomorrow we're going to do part 2. That is it for today.